Hey, welcome to a special Memorial Day event. I have something to say. Not so long ago, I didn't have something to say. All I could say was one, one, one. And that was my means of communication. But things changed because of good practice habits, good speech therapy, and the fact that I had a lot of help. So today I am going to bring on a guest that I am so excited about. You know why? She's smarter than me, a lot. And she has expertise that I don't have. And my goal is to learn by listening, seek to understand before being understood, and really delve into what she has to say. So I'm going to do that. And, share with your friends, please. We build our audience. Hey, Jenny, good morning. By likes and shares. So please share with your friends. Give us a lot of likes. You love me. I love you. So be sure and do that. Well, I am pleased to welcome my good friend. She has a lot of knowledge that I don't have. So I'm going to bring her in. 3, 2, 1. Hey, Carolyn.
Hi, Paul. Good morning.
Do I say doctor? Dr. Carolyn Falconer. So, when I had my stroke, I was caught in a world when I didn't know, didn't know at all what was going to happen. So I'm interested in how did you get interested in speech therapy? Tell me that story.
Sure. So I grew up with a sister who had a cleft lip and palate, and she needed speech therapy from a very young age. And I was the oldest and tried to take charge a little bit in helping her with her speech therapy, and seeing her struggle with communication and seeing how sometimes my parents didn't understand her. It really made me want to understand what she said and then be able to communicate it to someone else. So I almost feel sometimes like I was born to do that.
Yeah.
And it was definitely something I was always interested in.
Losing your ability to speak or having difficulty speaking, I didn't have any idea, but it's everything.
It is.
Everything to a person. If you think about it, all communication, something to be valued. We share stories by communication. We laugh by communication. We enjoy plays. Everything centers around your ability to communicate. And when you lose it, obviously it's frustrating. Obviously. So what is the most important thing you can do in the first month? I told you aside, you wouldn't suggest that I do what I did. I didn't even have my first speech lesson for 7 weeks.
No, I definitely would not suggest that. So when you're first in the hospital and you've had a brain injury or stroke, anything that causes aphasia, I mean, first of all, it's a shock to your whole system, and it's a shock to you as a person to try to speak and not to have the right things come out. So I think the first thing as a speech pathologist, what we need to do is really try to comfort someone and remind them that this is a temporary state, and there's a lot of improvement ahead. I also think that one of the most important things that someone this has happened to, is to take it easy, just at least for a few days, a week, 2 weeks. Let the brain start to do its healing processes, or medications to take effect, or if you've had surgery, for those things to start to heal. But then I do think in the first month, it's important for you to find a speech pathologist that you will be going to. Someone hopefully who's got a lot of experience in aphasia and neurological disorders.
And I'll tell you one quick story.
Of course.
That was my case. When I was in the hospital, I was annoyed at everything because I wanted to talk. I was a speaker. Who knew that I had aphasia? I didn't even know what that was. But when I went home, my first hint that I could get better, my son Ryan, brought me in my garage. I holed up in there, painted, and he bought me a pre-K kindergarten book. And he set it down and said, "You have to start somewhere, Dad." And he walked out. I looked at that book forever. First day, second day, third day. I finally said, "Sock." That was the first word in the book, sock. And then, if I could say sock, I could say anything. That gave me so much hope. So what's more important in the first month? How important is mindset?
I think mindset is probably the key to every accomplishment that anybody's ever made, because if you don't first believe you can do it, you wouldn't even bother to try to strive to do that. So I think it comes from hope, which I hear you saying that you were in a hopeless state and nobody said otherwise to you. So that really scares me. I don't like hearing that, because I think if you don't tell people, yes, it's bad right now, but it will get better. I know this is the worst it's going to be, and it's going to get a lot better from here. I can't promise you'll get back 100%, and I don't know how long it will take, but you will get a lot better. People need to be told that, because how can they even have enough belief to try to get better if people don't tell them that it's possible?
You know, I was in the hospital, and the neurologist and the speech pathologist were in my room talking to my kids. "Hey guys, welcome. A lot of good things going on for Memorial Day. I hope it's well to you." They were in my room talking to my kids, referring to me, and said, "Your dad will never be the same. He will struggle talking again, communicating again, reading again, writing again. You're going to have to go through a long process, and your dad needs your support. He will never be able to do what he does for a living again." So, and I threw a pen at the doctor because I couldn't talk.
But you understood.
Oh, I understood. So that's what's so bad about this type of projection, you know?
So
if I wasn't stubborn, I would have given up.
did the doctor get it that you were objecting to what he said? Did he get that?
Oh, he got it because I threw another pen and he ducked. And my son said, I think you need to leave.
Nice.
So why does that happen so much? Why?
So I think neurologists might still be trained. Because you have to understand, they learn a lot in a short amount of time. So even though they go on and specialize in neurology, there's still a lot of information. And I don't know for sure that every neurologist has seen a ton of people with aphasia recover, especially if they're just a hospital neurologist, right? And they don't follow the person along the recovery course. If they see,
I'm going to tell you a simple story. 2 months ago, I went to the hospital, the original hospital where I was airlifted. Walked in and said, "Oh, do you mind if I ask a question? You took care of me 23 months ago on the stroke floor." And all of a sudden, the nurse said, "I remember you. You couldn't talk at all. Come here, come here." And I can tell you, they were shocked. I said, "I believe that that's the case. They don't see very many people recover from
that's my
aphasia."
guess.
They were taking me around like a prop. Look, he can talk. Look, he can talk.
That's sad, but
True.
I know. I think that, neurologists who only work in a hospital and only work for like people who had acute problems and don't follow them over the chronic course, they don't see the change that people make. And, you have made a great recovery in 23 months. Just think of what you'll be like in another year, right? It's going to be even better. So I never tell people this is the best it's going to be. I do tell them this is the worst it's going to be. This is as bad as it's going to get.
Every day you can learn something new. So give us your insight on the first 6 months.
So the first 6 months is in that period that we call spontaneous recovery. Some people define it as from the injury to 6 months, and some people define it from the injury to a year. So 6 months to a year is all considered spontaneous recovery. And during that time, the brain is going through a lot of healing processes. So in the very beginning, any cells that have died because of lack of oxygen, they're getting cleaned out, and they're getting the healthier ones that can be restored are coming back online. Connections are being reestablished from the areas that were damaged. And
can I interrupt you? Yeah. The mind is such an amazing thing. When you say cleaned out and reconnected, what do you mean?
Okay, so normally people who have aphasia had a left-sided injury because the left side of the brain houses our language functions in most people. And so in an area where cells have died, so let's say they didn't get oxygen because there was a clot or some kind of blockage, part of that vascular system that's been blocked was giving nutrients and oxygen to cells in your language areas. And some of those cells died because they didn't get enough oxygen when...
Hang on 1 second. Yeah. Hey, Jeff Beeler, I love you, buddy. I'm thinking about you. You have gone through so much with cancer. I've got you back. And if you need me, call me, okay? So good. Good. Okay.
Hi, Jeff. Good luck. So what happens is some cells die. And in the very beginning, those cells need to be taken away. So we have other brain cells that are not neurons called glia that come in and glia.
Okay.
So there's a few different types in the brain, and they each have their own jobs. And one of the jobs that some glia have is to like take away debris.
Wow.
And then clear it back into the fluids and then get it cleared out of our system.
No way. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love learning.
So that's what happens in the very beginning. And while that's happening, cells around that area may or may not survive. And the goal in the emergency room in the beginning is to get those cells to live if possible. Because the more brain tissue that survives, the more of that area for language is still there to do its job. Huh. So But anything that dies or is damaged, all the connections are temporarily stopped. So the brain is very interconnected. So we have connections across to the right hemisphere. We have connections all throughout the same hemisphere and up and down. So all those connections are temporarily stopped, and then they have to come back online. And this whole process takes
back online, like my technology sometimes.
So while that's all happening, that takes like at least a good week to 10 days for all that to happen. That's why I like people to rest during that time, let the brain heal. That's not to say cut people off completely and don't communicate with them. That's not at all what I mean. But I wouldn't push people then. And the only reason I say that, just for the first 10 days-ish, 2 weeks maybe, is because you don't want to tax that area too much.
Can I ask you a question? When I think back on my first 2 weeks, I was a little bit of a brain fog, you know, it was every day seemed like the previous day, seemed like just a brain fog. I just didn't have a good recollection of all that was happening. Is that why?
I'm sure that's at least part of it. And plus, being in the hospital is very disorienting as well.
Oh, yeah. I don't make a good patient. First year. The first year.
So after that initial process, then spontaneous recovery continues in different ways, depending on how big a lesion you had. So for people who had larger lesions, the right hemisphere has to take up some of the work. And for people who had smaller lesions, most of the left brain surrounding the areas that were damaged in the stroke can take up the work. Okay, so that's the basics of spontaneous recovery. That's about reorganization and different areas being able to do some of the language work.
Is it fair to say that if you had met one person with aphasia, you met one person with aphasia, it's all different?
It is very different. Yes, and there's many different types of aphasia. We have different areas in the brain that do different things for language. So it depends where the injury was, how large it was. It depends on what you were like before and how verbal you are. There's evidence that if you speak more than one language, they can be damaged differently. So there's a lot of things that go into each individual's aphasia and their recovery. But spontaneous recovery is the process that the brain goes through without any intervention. It's what spontaneously happens.
You know, I have a good friend, Felisa Hervey, that has a stroke about 4 years ago, and she spoke 6 languages. And we were talking, and she said, losing your voice is simply everything. And we were at school together. I am so proud of her. She passed her dissertation for her doctorate degree post-stroke.
How amazing. It was quite a challenge for me.
God is good, yes. You know,
incredible.
So I'm going to say this word, neuroplasticity.
Yeah, that's it. You got it.
Tell me about that. I love the study of this subject a lot.
Right. So we were just talking about it a lot with spontaneous recoveries. So neuroplasticity's basic definition is the ability of the brain to change.
The brain heals itself. Right?
Well, that's what we were talking about, right? So those are the processes we were speaking of where, you know, initial cleanup and getting things back to functioning that are still healthy enough to, and then reconnecting things the way they were, or in neuroplasticity in a different way. So we can gain new synapses, we can have new connections between neurons, and we can have different cortical areas even take over some functions. So we can have some right hemisphere areas take over, and we can have some left hemisphere areas around the damaged area take over. And that's all neuroplasticity.
You know, I have I think I got it from Norman Dodge,
Mhm.
reading
I love his book.
Together, Fire Together, and I say that all the time. I've had me a T-shirt made, Wire Together, Fire Together. So I try to build phrases by building so many ways that I can say it. And if I can do a multitude of different ways, I believe it reinforces everything I've learned.
That makes sense to me. And that Hebbian cell theory of, neurons that wire together, fire together. So originally that was by Hebb. I forget his first name, but he posited that a while back, and it's quite true. So what you want is neurons of your different language networks
Right.
to be stimulated enough to get words back out. And so during spontaneous recovery, it's a really good time to harness those natural processes of neuroplasticity that are happening by really working on speech therapy. We can improve what the brain would do on its own with really good interventions.
You know, one thing I can specifically remember was budding up, like phrases that, and I could say it by taking a little to, and when I first started speaking, I was so annoyed that I couldn't speak. I tried so hard. My first speech teacher, Christina in Shalimar, basically saved my life. She gave me hope, and she said, if you do the work, you can speak.
That's right.
She didn't paint the bleak picture. It's the worst is going to get like you, but most people give up. You have to make a choice. Are you going to give up or do the work?
Yeah.
And her suggestion, I bought a book called 40,000 Words.
Mm-hmm.
And I began to say that over and over when I couldn't say. It didn't sound like I was saying anything, to be honest with you. But for me, it was progress.
Yeah.
Progress.
So, I mean, that, like you said before about how everyone's so individual, that's amazing that worked for you. That might not work for some people who have like perseveration, for example, where they get stuck on a word. If they've said it, they might get stuck on that same word over and over and might not be able to progress. So different people might be helped by different interventions, and what works for one might be frustrating to another.
That was my point, that if you met one person with aphasia, you met one person with aphasia. For me, it was like my son had told her, if you tell my dad he can't do something, he's going to do it. So let's tell him he can't. And so they had an intervention, a private meeting. Imagine that. Anyway, I'm really interested in this subject because I don't know anything about it. So talk, please.
So here's what I think people forget in the neuroplasticity equation, right? If we're saying we can do things that will help the brain and promote more speech, we have to remember that the opposite is true, right? And you can have things that can negatively impact speech as well. And you want to avoid those. Those would be the maladaptive strategies and maladaptive things. Like I think I might have told you once about the fact that I noticed a lot of people when they come to meet me for the first time with aphasia, they'll turn to their spouse all the time to answer questions instead of even trying to answer them themselves. And I think that's because they've become conditioned, right? They try to say something, it doesn't come out the way they intend. And so they get like that negative reinforcement and it makes them stop trying. So they just turn to their partner. And to me, that's maladaptive. Anything that stops people from trying to use speech and language, to me, is maladaptive. And so you don't want to promote those behaviors.
Let me take a little break. I need to say hellos to some of my friends. Hey, Carla, how's Kayla? Kayla is the most amazing person. She had 39 surgeries.
Oof.
That's her mom. And she's my closest aphasia friend. And we've spent a lot of time together. I gave her something, and I hope it helped. But she had, her mom, Carla, had to say goodbye to her daughter 39 times.
Oh, wow.
So I'm telling you, she is a fierce warrior. She doesn't quit. She's one of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. Matana, hello to you. Sherry, hello. Laura, hello. Glad you could join us. So we're going to continue. I love you. Okay. So any other example about maladaptive that you can give?
So again, I think it's anything that keeps you from trying to use your speech and language. So while as we go through this, I'm going to be encouraging people to use any form of communication possible. I think at the end of that, once you figured out what your message is, what you're trying to say, I think then whoever's there with you listening should try to help you to get the word that you were trying to get out.
So what should speech therapy do for you?
So in my opinion, speech therapy is something that should help you to learn strategies to communicate, and also teach people in your life how to help you communicate. They should definitely give you tools to use, but you should be involved in deciding what the goals are for you. I believe that it should be about what you're trying to accomplish. So, I mean, I could sit here and make a list of goals, and even if my goals are good, they're not going to be as motivating to you as something that you want to achieve yourself.
Exactly. Can I ask one question? I believe it should be in line with what you think, feel, and want.
Yeah.
So I wanted to return to do videos. I wanted to return to knowing my quotes. I wanted to return to learning my creed. I wanted to return to having an influence on others that had aphasia. And the first 2 weeks, it was nothing like that. And all of a sudden, I was just able to communicate. I borrowed a bunch of stuff and I said, this, I was pointing, this is my creed. This is my manifesto. I wanted to learn those. The minute we adopted that, I was off and running, and because it has to be something that elevates interest.
Yeah.
And when you elevate interest, you have enthusiasm, that excitement, energy.
Yeah. 100%. I agree with you. And that's gold to me. If somebody has things they want to say, that's where I'm headed in terms of first outcomes. I remember having a priest as a patient once, and he could immediately do all the automatic prayers, like the Our Father, things that are overlearned, that have become kind of automatized and routines. Those are easy for people to get back. And then things that they've developed themselves, that's 100% where people should start.
It's interesting. You just brought a point up. So the fact that I had said my creed probably 2 million times in front of audiences, that was overlearned, so it came back.
Exactly.
I didn't think I was ever going to get it, and all of a sudden it clicked. I could say it every day. I just said it a little bit better. So, how much should you practice?
I think we have to go back to if you've met one person with aphasia, it's going to be individual, because from what I've gotten from you, you were always one to get up early and work really hard and do long days, right? So that's probably what you wanted to do with speech. You probably wanted to get up early, work all day, work, very focused. And that probably would work for you. But if that was superimposed on somebody who doesn't normally do that, that would be way too much for them, especially when their brain is trying to heal, right? So I definitely think people should practice a lot. And the more natural, the better. So if you live with people, talk to the people. If you live with animals, talk to the animals. I mean, just talk. And you're right, the precision and all of that will come along, but you have to start.
How important is rest?
Very important. The brain can't function without rest. And so once you've had some kind of brain injury, the need for the rest is even more important, especially in the beginning. So that's why the first couple of weeks, I really try not to work too intensively. I try to just, give education and talk about, the fact that there's hope and that people will improve and things like that, and give a lot of education during that time, because I think it's really important to let the brain do its cleanup and recovery process. So after that, though, I think you need to listen to your body. If you're working hard and you need a break, I think you need to take the break, take a nap, meditate, do whatever it is that helps your brain to recharge. You should do that when your body tells you to.
I have pre-stroke. I had never done a meditation at all, guided meditation. A friend of mine convinced me to do it post-stroke about a year in. So that was about June of 2019. I do it every day. It has added so much value to my life. Just a 20-minute guided meditation. It puts me in the right frame of mind, relaxes me, brings calmness to my spirit. Consequently, my practice is much better.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
where did you find your meditation?
On YouTube.
Yeah, me too. That's what I use.
Yep, and it's so easy to just look up guided meditation, watch several, the one you like, and that's it. So how important is establishing a routine? I am routine driven, but what is important about that with aphasia?
So I think in general, for all people, and especially now with self-isolating and being at home, we see the need so much more now for a routine, because otherwise your day can become like an endless, vast pit of TV watching or something like that. So I think it really kind of comes down to a bit of giving yourself some discipline, some structure to your day, so you know what to expect. And that winds up taking a little stress out of your day, actually, because you know what's coming next for each part of the day, and you know what you have to prepare in advance. But for people who are, getting up and out and going to therapies, I think it's really important to be in the right frame of mind and to prepare ahead of time for those things, like you were saying, with practice and with rest and meditations and things like that.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. When I get off my routine, I'm a train wreck.
Oh.
Because I just get out of focus, and I don't get as much accomplished. And one of the hard things for me in having aphasia, I was so goal oriented, habit driven. And when I had my stroke, I had to get myself back in to being routine oriented. And when I get up and I don't look at my routine, I don't check my schedule, I tend to vacillate about doing things.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, productivity and accomplishing goals is driven by doing the little steps. So having a routine in place to support that is definitely important.
How important is a person that has aphasia in reflecting on goal setting? How important is it? Because for me, if without a goal, I don't have any purpose. But when I could write down, I want to say this 20 words, go about a week of learning, and I could say 20 words, I was so excited. That gave me so much hope. I celebrated 20 words that I could say, 20 words.
Yeah.
More than I did any award I ever received. It was so important that I could talk again. It was just so amazing. And
I would be that way too.
I don't think people realize that for a person that has aphasia, mastering a word, just a word, is so rewarding.
Yeah. So I think goal setting is extremely important. And that is something that sometimes speech therapists have to do for getting reimbursement. So when people first think about goals, that's the stuff I think speech pathologists think of is what they're writing to get reimbursement. But I think even more, to your point, is about getting what the person with aphasia's goals are. And sometimes it's hard, especially in the beginning, because their goal is to talk. And that's the answer to the question, is just to talk.
Exactly. That's it.
Trying to
I want to talk.
I know, I hear that all the time. And of course, I mean, I would be the same exact way. So I think the thing that's hard at first is narrowing it down to specific, smaller goals. For you, you had a wealth of written and verbal information you used. So it was easier for you. You want to learn your creed. You want, all the things that you defined your speaking, right? For other people, it might be something that's further on, like, okay, so in a couple of months, I have to do the toast at my daughter's wedding, or I want to get back to work. And then we have to build from there, like, what are the skills that they would need to do to get back to work, to the larger goal, and then try to, figure out steps, intermediate steps to get there.
Okay, I am so excited about this. I asked you to give an outline, 10-step outline. So I'm going to pull the step up. We got about 1 minute.
Okay.
Step. You ready?
Got it.
How to help yourself.
Okay. So this one's about talking, right? Because you have to do the talking in order to perfect the talking. So this is a non-negotiable, absolutely have to do step. You have to talk. You have to push yourself. If you're uncomfortable, you have to just try. It's just that simple. You must talk and you must practice speaking in order to get better at it. And so I have my Rosalini here as a demonstration. Right? So if you have pets, talk to your pets. If you have little kids in your house, talk to them. If you can read a bit, you can read them a story. Anything that you can use, what you're doing, words you hear on TV, repeat them. Just
yes,
talk,
I did that.
right?
I did
that. Talk.
Okay. Step 2.
Okay, so this one I don't hear a lot when I hear about tips with aphasia. So make sure if you're speaking to someone else that they're getting your message. Okay. And you can use a number of different ways to get the clues about whether they're understanding you. So you can straight out ask, did you understand me? Did you get that? And people might say yes, even when they don't. So watch for facial expressions as well.
Exactly.
So, it's better if the person's honest with you, because then you can revise your message or try another way to communicate. Someone in here said, try another way if it doesn't work. Totally. Write it down, point to something, whatever you have to do, but make sure that they get it. So also, if they answer you and it doesn't make sense with what you were saying, there's another clue that they were answering the wrong thing, so they didn't understand your message.
Well, I'm so glad I had you on the show, because that's one thing that I'm going to add immediately. Sometimes I'll have a conversation, I'll get frustrated, I'll walk away knowing they didn't get it, and I'm reinforcing the maladaptive behavior you're talking about. So when I talk and they don't get it, I walk away. I need to stay and understand that they're struggling, I'm struggling, and help them get it.
Right. And then your message is getting clearer and you're refining how you're communicating. And so it's a great thing for you to learn to stay and work through those communication breakdowns.
Thank you so much. Step 3.
Okay, so if you can't get the words out, different people have different preferences of how they want that handled, right? And it may change as you recover. So in the beginning, they may want you to take guesses, right? But as you get better, it may be more productive for them to stay quiet and give you time. Exactly. So that you can process. But if you can't get the words out and someone's guessing and you'd rather them stay quiet, we're going to get to this, but it's definitely good for you to communicate that you'd prefer, to have a little extra time. Because,
when I first had my stroke, finally, I was able to communicate that I wasn't saying one, I was saying I want to. And so my son drew a picture of everything that I like to do. Go to Home Depot, Starbucks. So he drew it and I just would point. I want to,
Yeah.
So it helped so much because they were giving hints, but I couldn't talk. That was fine. When I got better, I want to think about what I'm going to say and don't interrupt, don't give hints. So it's some things that work beforehand, I don't want to do it now, but it's just a part of growth in aphasia, I think.
Absolutely, definitely.
Use all forms of communication.
Yeah, so I think we touched on this a little bit, but there are many ways you can get a message across. So if you can't get a word out, but you can write it. It's not a loss. Just because it's something you need to use now doesn't mean you'll have to use it forever. And actually, the areas that produce words for writing versus speech are very interconnected. So you're actually stimulating your spoken words by using the writing. You're also stimulating it by using gestures and descriptive use of, like let's say you're talking about the hammer and you do the pounding movement. Exactly. That kind of thing is very useful. Drawing, like you said, pointing to pictures, actually using photographs of people, or you could have, lists of common places, like you said, Home Depot, the post office, the pharmacy. You could have these things. Having maps available and calendars to talk about time. Time is a very difficult concept to talk about without words. So calendars and clocks and things like that, if you have them all available, you can use them to supplement your spoken communication.
I think that's parlays right into the next thing, and I have hints that I can point to early on that helped me so much. I was so frustrated because, it wasn't frustration with my family. It was just frustration that I couldn't get them to understand. And I knew it was hard for them.
Yeah.
It took me a year to tell them that because I couldn't. But hey, Velco, thank you, buddy. I want to get to see you sometime. So good. Good for you to stop in. But anyway, how do you mean give hints?
Yeah. So if you're a person with aphasia and you can't get that word, but you're accessing a bunch of stuff related to it. Let's use the example of like apple, right? Let's say I want to tell you that I want an apple, but I can't get apple out. But I can get red or even fruit or crunchy or grows on trees, right? So that'll help the listener to narrow down the area that you could possibly be talking about and can give them some information to help them help you get the word out.
You know what? Incoming learning. I am so excited about having you on this show because listen, I have a lot of friends that have aphasia and we need help. And it's nice of you to say what you're saying in such an understandable, clear way. Clarity is everything, by the way. I tried to go too fast, and one of my really learning points was speak with accuracy first, clarity second, then work on speed. And I wanted to work on speed first. That was a mistake. So let me say, use technology.
Yeah. So I think people start to do this naturally. I've seen people with aphasia, they take out their phone and they'll be like, hey, wait, I can show it to you. And they figure out a way themselves to show you, and they'll turn the phone and be like, this is what I mean. So if you can search for pictures of what you mean, or if you can use apps to help you with speech therapy or even pronunciation, like there's thesaurus apps that have you put in the word and it'll have a little speaker looking button. You speak,
Yep.
say it, and you can imitate that, repeat it.
I love text to speech. I use it all the time.
Yeah, that's a really useful.
I love it. Anything, any word I struggle with, immediately I enter it in my text to speech and work on it. Slow the pitch down, slow the saying down, put it in a phrase, use it and use it and use it a lot.
I think that's really helpful. And some apps, that's what they do. But there's a lot of really good apps out there also that are based on speech therapy research, and I find them really good. I really like Tactus therapy apps for that.
I've never heard about that.
Oh, I love it. It's created by a speech pathologist, and she creates ways to use the programs in all different ways. So it's really good. She has them for motor speech disorders as well, like apraxia. So it's Tactus, Tactus.
Okay. Can you do me a favor? When we finish this show, go back and put that in the notes.
Oh, yeah,
so
sure.
Have it. I have to say hello. Hey, Kayla, you joined. How you doing, baby? That's Kayla. I was talking about.
Yeah, I remember. Hi, Kayla.
Her story is so amazing. I think they ought to make a movie about her life.
One more thing I wanted to say, though, is about those apps in particular. Remember, you told the story about your son leaving you the preschool book, right? Mm-hmm. I think these apps were created with that in mind. She didn't want people to have to use children's materials. So these are adult related and very appropriate. I just think they're a really good source.
Well, I can't wait to check it out. So have the people in your life learn more about aphasia. Talk to me about that.
So this is twofold. So the people in your life that are closest to you, if you're the person with aphasia, they've also gone through a loss. Because at least at the beginning, things are different. And they might have to take over some different roles or speak to you in a different way to get the communication that they want. But they're also going through a bit of a trauma as well. And so it's really important that they get support that they need, but then that they're able to support you. So they need to learn about aphasia, why it happened, understanding, different communication strategies that they can use to help you, but also to help themselves, because it can be frustrating for them as well when they can't figure out what you're trying to say, especially if you're obviously suffering and frustrated. It's very hard.
Hey, one of the things that I'm being asked, can you say the name of the application and spell it and say where you can get it? People are asking.
Yeah, it's Tactus Therapy, TACTUS Therapy. And she has a web page. So if you search Tactus Therapy, you should find the speech therapy app.
Okay, that's you can find it now. So number 8.
Oh, okay. So when we were talking about how people should have personalized goals, I think it's really important. That's an extension of this thought, which is that the speech pathologist doesn't necessarily have control over the whole speech environment, right? You need to be an active partner with your speech pathologist in designing a program that works for you, your goals, your lifestyle, your ambitions, your personal, the way that you tend to work, right? So if you're someone who tends to work like you do, right, all day throughout the day, then a program would be different and have different goals and different time frames for achieving the goals than for someone who prefers a different strategy.
Exactly. One of the things that has been so amazing, I wanted to record my videos. When I started, I just used iTunes, and I struggled because for me, technology just went away. And I was recorded 14,000 videos without a note pre-stroke. And it took me a week to record a 1-minute video, and I would throw it away because I was disappointed because I couldn't get it right. But I set new goals. Man, you can't believe all I can do to edit videos. I'm getting really good, and it's so, that was a goal I set, and I am so glad I did. I have to give credit to one of my speech teachers that you do the work. You investigate it. You learn. They wouldn't help me, but would advise me where to look. So they made me, instead of codependent, they made me independent and want to learn. So I thank you for that.
I have definitely surprised some of my patients with my instructions, like, go make a spreadsheet and keep track of all the invitations to the aphasia party, please. And they're like, me? What?
For what are you saying about step 9? Advocate for yourself during communication.
Yes. So you've given a couple of good examples now, right? Maybe this will be something you'll start to do after talking about maladaptive strategies and about making sure people are understanding your message. So you can slow people down or tell them you need a minute, things like that. You personally can just tell people, if I can't get a word, just let me think for a minute. And I'll tell you if I need help. But for other people, they might be like, tell me now. Like, that's something I get a lot of, like, okay, go ahead. Like, they give in and they want to hear it. And if they do it too often, then I try to say, okay, wait, I'm going to let you work on it a little bit. But basically what I'm saying here is that you should steer the ship a little bit in terms of what's going to help you the most.
Okay.
If you need
So-
more time, ask for it.
Okay. So be your own speech advocate in communication, and it will get better, because every time you walk away frustrated, maladaptive behavior. I got that. Use your right hand. What are you talking about?
Okay. So I know I sprung this one on you last minute. Okay. So we talked about how most of the language areas are usually located on the left side of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And the left side of the brain also controls the right side of the body. So if you're using your right hand, and a lot of times people may become paralyzed on the right side with a stroke that causes aphasia, for the same reason, that this side of the brain controls this side of the body. The left controls right and vice versa. So by using your right hand, or if you have paralysis or weakness in the hand, use your right shoulder. Try to start using your right arm as much as you can. What it does is it stimulates areas that neighbor the areas that are probably going to become the areas that language will land in during neuroplastic changes.
That's so amazing. When I was learning to talk, I made hand signals that,
Both hands?
yes, sometimes one hand, sometimes two hands, no problem was fall back, be happy to, I understand,
Mm-hmm.
and it helped me control my inflection, my cadence, my planned pausing, and it gave me different ways to think about what I wanted to say. Think about what I wanted to say. Think about what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and this can be for people who have right weakness. It's also important. The same thing we talked about with adaptive versus maladaptive strategies. It's important to not give up on that arm either. So try to use it, but it does stimulate language areas. So I sometimes tell people, if you don't want to be talking all the time, do things with your hands that involve bilateral use of your body and right-handedness. So whether it's a craft or painting like you do, even, dancing, you're using your arms, you're using your whole body. But yeah, definitely try to use the right side. So I like to do like little artistic crafts and things like that. So I find myself using it for fine motor movements. But it's also a really good way, if you're writing, it stimulates that side, plus it stimulates language. So all of that right hand use is really helpful.
Good advice. So we're going to take about 15 minutes to finish up. We're going to go over, but she has a lot to say. And no, the show is I have something to say. So we both do. So why is it when it comes to aphasia, there's such a lack of understanding? I did a survey a year into my recovery. I went and interviewed people on the street.
Did you?
Roving reporter. What is aphasia? I think it's a country in Africa. What is aphasia? I think it's a menu at a sushi restaurant. Oh, what is aphasia? If you go down, take a left, and go down 3 blocks, take a right, you'll run into Aphasia Street. So only
I don't know why.
knew what aphasia was. So why? Why is there such? I've never heard of it.
I know. I don't know exactly why there's such a lack of understanding. But this is something for years we've wondered about in the aphasiology community, and how to try to remedy this. So we used to think all we needed to do was get someone with aphasia on Oprah. Well, that didn't work. And, you know, I thought maybe when Gabby Giffords was in the news all the time because of being her head injury, having been shot, and her recovery was in the news all the time. And then sometimes I would read articles about her and they would say aphasia, and I'd be like, yeah. And other times they didn't say it. And then sometimes when I see it on TV, it's ridiculously not correct.
Did you see the 30-minute special on Randy Travis, the singer?
No, but he has, yeah, he has aphasia. Yeah.
He never mentioned it in the whole broadcast.
I know.
Not a word aphasia this ever mentioned.
It's so perplexing to me. I don't understand. It's crazy because that's his essential issue is aphasia. I mean, that's the problem. And they don't use the word. It's crazy.
So you're going to help me. We're going to spread awareness all over the world.
Yeah,
I believe
yes.
they have no little plans. They have no magic to stir a woman's and a man's blood. Make big plans. So we're going to do it, okay? Okay. What if you had to sit down with a high school student and you only had 1 minute to talk? What is the greatest thing you have ever learned in your lifetime?
Wow. Okay. I think I would tell people the most important thing I've learned in my life is to be kind to other people and to try to put yourself in their shoes. Because I think having empathy is essential in any career, any relationship, any human pursuit. It's essentially being able to see that other people have needs and how you can help to fill those and it's also
very much
rewarding.
My mom said kindness looks good on you like a tailor suit.
Oh, she sounds lovely.
Oh, yeah. Complete this sentence. It's never too late
to improve your speech. It's never too late. And there's studies on this. There's a lot of studies on this to show that people in what we call the chronic stage, which is after that year of spontaneous recovery, people with speech therapy or with targeted, you know, strategies to improve their own speech, either way is fine, can improve forever. They can continue to.
I learn every day. And it's so
people come to me 15, even 20 years after a stroke, and I still see improvement, even if they haven't worked on it all that time.
Exactly, because the brain is creating new cells all the time. You know, and we can learn. So we're going to play a little game. You ready?
Maybe.
No. Well, I play it with every guest I have on the show. So be nice. Teaching.
Oh, learning. So I think that when you're teaching, you should be focused on is making sure that the people you're teaching are actually learning the information. So it's those comprehension check-ins. I teach for NYU, and I want to make sure that people are really getting what I'm saying. So I think I need to make sure they're learning.
Optimism.
So in terms of aphasia, I like to think of optimism as hope plus realism. So it's complete. It's really, it's true. People will improve if they're doing things that improve their speech. So that's the realism. And then the hope should drive you because you see cases like Paul, and I can tell you that I've seen many, many people improve. So I think you should be optimistic about recovery.
So determination. I have a good friend, Michelle Clements, and she had a major stroke, aphasia, and she is the most determined uh, determined to talk again, and I'm so proud of her. So tell me about determination as it reflects on aphasia.
I think it's about your will. And if you really focus on something and determine that you will achieve it, then it will happen. I'm not going to put a time frame on it. Like it took you 5 days to say sock, you did it. That's all that matters.
Tell me about habits as it relates to aphasia.
So habits are super interesting to me. I think the thing about habits that is really important is the more often you do something, the easier and more perfect it becomes. So it's like practice. Habit is the practice of doing something over and over to me, so that it becomes routine and becomes easier for you to access at will whenever you want it to come out.
Let me give a little shout out to author, The Power of Habits.
Mm.
And the author's name is Charles Duhigg. Best book I ever read on habits.
Wow.
And I've read a lot. And that comes with a workbook too. It will change your life in the way you approach habits.
Awesome.
And I would strongly recommend that book. So the big word is aphasia. Aphasia.
So aphasia. So aphasia makes me think first of all about a language impairment, strictly a language impairment, meaning only language is affected and not other cognitive processes, not memory, not problem solving ability, not general intelligence, none of those. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. But it also makes me think of people with aphasia, and they're some of the most amazing, strong, determined bunch of people I've ever met. Very motivating people too, because there's nothing like being dealt a terrible deck of cards and then being able to rearrange them into something amazing.
Oh, that's a good thing. You know, I said early on, aphasia sucks. It does. It sucks. But there comes with it so much isolation, loneliness, sadness, frustration. We need to address the mental health issues.
You're right.
That come with aphasia.
You're totally right.
And if you leave it out, you're going to lose people, to be frank with you. It's hard. Many people leave, run away from friends that have aphasia.
Yeah.
And you know that's true. And when you find yourself isolated, the calls don't come as regularly as they used to. And then all of a sudden it stops and nobody calls. It's hard because you feel like, what did I do? Because you're the same person. Listen, we are the same people that had the stroke.
Yeah.
We're the same people, have the same sense of humor, the same intellect, the same drive, the same determination. We're funny and we want to be around our friends.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that. So, you know, Christina said that she's a mental health expert and she made several comments. It's important that we maintain our mental health.
It's so important, Paul. It's terrible to see people in such distress all the time. It's one of the things that's hard about working with people with aphasia, but it's also the thing that motivates me as someone who can tend to get depressed to get up and be there, because I know I can be a lifeline for somebody.
Exactly. You know, the reason I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm going to spend my life helping other people with aphasia, strokes, TBIs, depression. So many people need help. And my goal in the Level 10 Hope Exchange is just one post at a time to provide hope and good thoughts and tools that really work. And so I want to tell you something. It's been a blessing to have you on this show, and we're going to have you back, and we need to do some work together. It's too important to ignore, too important to ignore. And we have the chance to do something great for people that have aphasia. I've been shocked that people that meet me don't understand. I don't, I look fine, but I have a disability.
Yeah.
And
those invisible disabilities are really difficult. And that's one of the things I guess I was getting at with kindness is, you know, to be empathetic, but also truly, we never know what somebody else has been through or is going through.
Exactly. So I just want to thank you and say you did well. You did so outstanding. I have learned so much today. And I'm glad we did this on the holiday, special holiday. My dad was a veteran, and thanks for all of you who tuned in. We appreciate you taking the time on this special day to join us. So, as I always say, until next Monday, be blessed, and may the speech be with you. Have a level 10 day, always, and hope is on the way. It is. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.